Hello and welcome at Book Lovers Companion. My name is Edith and right next to me is my lovely co-host, the chattering teacup.
Hello.
And here with us, again a guest from across the pond, Patti Meredith. Hello and welcome at Book Lovers Companion.
Hello and welcome to y'all across the pond. This is so exciting for me. I love it. I wish I was with you. I wish I was in Vienna with y'all. And I bet it's beautiful. Are the Christmas decorations up and everything?
I think so. Yeah.
They started
a bit later than usual, but Christmas markets are open now in Vienna.
I would love to hit a Christmas market in Vienna.
It can be quite nice, although I think they only are nice when it's dark outside. Yeah. But there are lots of people when it's dark, so...
Yeah, but they're some nice markets.
Yeah, they're very beautiful. Some of them are very beautiful.
Yeah, you can choose.
Well, thank you for bringing me there through your podcast. I really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. You are an author of the book South of Heaven, your debut, which came out this year. And I have to tell you, I said so before we started the recording, it was a fascinating and wonderful read. Thank you for that.
It really does. It just thrills me to think of someone, in Vienna reading South of Heaven set in North Carolina and thinking, okay, this is okay. I get it. But what was it? I mean,
it was more than okay. It was fascinating. I enjoyed your characters. I enjoyed the story. And like you said, Teacup, it's a family epic, so to speak.
Yeah, family history.
Yeah, epic. Yeah. And your ensemble cast, again, we often had that in books, not just one person, but an ensemble of characters. They are interesting. Some of them are, like I told you, for example, your character Leona, she is sometimes a bit, oh, come on, woman, what is wrong with you? But she gets there.
Yeah, I tell friends when the book first came out and people were starting to read it, I was like, okay, just give Leona a chance because you're going to want to stop reading in the second chapter. You're going to want to go, I am not dealing with her.
No. I mean,
so it's like, just hang with her, you know.
Because you get to know her a little bit by bit along the book when you read along, and you learn about her past, her sister's past, and so on, and you get where she comes from.
You get to know why they are, how they are, what made them.
Right, and it took me a while to get to Leona because when I first had her as a character, when she first showed up as Fern's sister, I was having trouble because she was a real stereotype. She just cared about what everybody thought, and she was just... And then it wasn't until I realized what she had done as a child, as a young girl, to take care of her sister and her brother in a bad circumstance that I realized why she was so controlling. And then I could have some compassion for her. That made me have more compassion for her. And so she became more of a real person, Yeah.
And you understand her better when you learn about her past. And like you said, what made her the person she is in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also the others. I mean, what struck me, or one sentence or part of a sentence which struck me when I read your book, it's fairly at the beginning. I think a first or second chapter when you wrote the false front of Southern hospitality. Tell us about Southern hospitality and why is this, or can it be a false front? I'm most interested because we are not from the American South. So
what I'd like to know is, you often hear about the South. What is it typically in the Southern states? What is it that makes you belong there? What's the typical behavior or something like in the South compared to the rest?
Okay. So I'm kind of at a disadvantage because I've never lived anywhere else, but I have lived a lot of places in the South. My husband worked in commercial television broadcasting, and we moved a lot. I've lived in Alabama, Memphis, Tennessee, Columbia, South Carolina, Huntsville, Alabama. And there is a true Southern hospitality. There really is, that's honest and pure and true. And then, but there's also how with everything, people can take something that's honest and true, and there's the pretend. But I think if you're from the South, you recognize the fault. You know when somebody's pretending. You know, you know when they aren't really glad to see you, or they don't really want you to come over. Like, oh yeah, we'll have to get together. That means I am never going to see you again for as long as I live. Just
Yeah.
forget it. This is not going to happen. And it's kind of I guess it's kind of a tone, because I've had friends who've moved here to the South from like the North. And they're like, don't people they don't mean what they say. And I'm like, no, they don't, not all the time. But I think there's like a tiny inflection that if you're from the South, you know if it's real. And but there is, the South, American South is, all the of the bad history is still with us. We're still trying to overcome the horrors that we've had in our history. But there's also, I think we all feel that there's something also good and special about the South, and we're trying. I mean, there's nothing like a liberal Southerner. I mean, that person really has heart and really cares, But there is something special about the way of life here. It is slower, I think, and maybe not like it used to be. I mean, I think with everything else now, we're a lot more like everywhere else. And there's been, we're everywhere. But I wish you guys could just come. You need to come over here. But the food, we have our own, the food thing is a big thing here. And we are very proud of our Southern food, although I don't recommend everything. Like we lived in Louisiana, and I never did get into eating the crawfish thing. They eat these crawfish, and where I grew up in Virginia, we used to call that fish bait, it's like we didn't eat that. So there's a lot of things, but does that even come close to answering the question?
Yes, it does. And does also to fit in play a part in being a Southerner? Because that's something Leona struggles with, because she said in the book that she always tried to fit in. And that's also something she taught her daughters. And maybe that's also the reason why one of her daughters can't cope with everything that's going on in the book.
Do you think that in the South it is more important to, let's say, keep up appearances than somewhere else?
I don't know. When I used to think that, but then I met some people from the North who were really trying to keep up appearances too. And so it's like, okay, I don't know. I think it's just people, and I'm so grateful to be older. Like I'm 66, and it's so good to be, I think when you get older, you let go of so much of that.
Yeah.
And I think I was very, very fortunate to be raised in a family that was very accepting, and we didn't do a very good job of keeping up appearances. We might have tried, at some point, but I think with my family, the truth, like we could only hold it in so long.
Yeah.
I was very lucky to grow up in a family that was open, and you feel bad for people who are stuck in that, because I mean, we have this one beautiful life, and to live it trying to be something you're not is difficult.
Yeah. And would you say that from all of your characters, we said it's an ensemble cast, that Dean is the most honest one of them all?
He has no filter, Rita.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's why he's honest.
He just doesn't get why you would not be.
Yeah.
And I just love that about him. It's because it makes absolutely no sense to him. And I think, wow, wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
To not second guess so much that you say and do, just to, like, when you see something, say something, like that saying goes. But yeah, Dean, he has no filter, and he had no filter from the very beginning. He was the first character that came to my head. And the first scene that came to me was Dean as a child in that bamboo patch looking for, like pretending like he found his dad. And I had that, that's all I knew from, but I knew that Gene was different. I knew that he had something going on that made him different and think differently. And then he introduced me to the rest of his family.
Ah, okay. So you started with him, and each chapter is from a different perspective, from a different character. Did you also plan it that way, or did it just happen?
I think that's as a as a debut novelist or whatever, I think that was the only way I could handle it. Mm-hmm. And I wrote the book like in first person, but still had different chapters. Every character had their own chapter. And I kind of like that because I felt like everybody had their own point of view. And a better writer could have woven that in more I'm trying to think of a book I just read recently, and I was like, wow. Oh, I know what it was. It was Lessons in Chemistry. There's I can't remember the woman who wrote it, but she gives everybody has their point of view, but it's woven in. It's not like chapter by chapter. But anyway, back to it. I think it, even for whatever reason, doing that, I think it worked because I wanted Dean to have a specific voice, and I definitely wanted Fern to have her voice and Leona to have hers, and because they're just different people. So it just worked for me, really.
And and it also, I think, from my point of view, it also works perfectly for the reader because, like I said, it keeps you going on to find out what else is going on and how, like you said, other characters see things from a different perspective, perhaps.
Right. The same situation. Yep. The same situation differently.
Yep, exactly.
How difficult was it for you to keep track of all the different characters and the backstories and to differentiate the perspectives?
I had to be careful, and I don't know that I probably messed it up, but I would repeat myself too much. I would, it was like there was something, what was it? I don't know, something about magazines on the floor. And for some reason I had magazines on the floor a lot. I mean, it was like Fern was real, it was like, clean up your house, girl. It's like, when I was going back and looking at it, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got that magazine on the floor thing again. So little things like that. But I had really helpful readers. I have great friends here. I guess everybody feels like that about the place they live, but I feel like North Carolina is just an amazing place for writers. I have my friend Darnell Arnault, Karen Mott. It's just so many good people that read the book and helped me,
Mm-hmm. And the book is not set in the present time, but it is set in 1998. We have the backdrop of the Clinton-Lewinsky thing, and we also have a thing further from the past popping up again and again, the Vietnam War.
Right.
So just why? Okay.
No, that's good. I knew that I wanted Mac, Dean's father, to be missing in action, and I wanted him to be missing in action from the Vietnam War. And so I didn't want it to be too far into the future because I wanted that to still be kind of possible for him to be missing and for it not to be that long, that he was missing. And there was something, the Brooklyn and Monica Lewinsky thing was so, talk about people wanting things to not be the way they were. It's like when that happened, I remember just like, oh, no, that didn't happen. No. And that was like, oh, yeah, maybe did. And the whole thing about, I don't even think, back when it was happening, I don't think I allowed myself to have the empathy for Monica Lewinsky that I have now. Now I see her, I think, oh, my stars, and I kind of think about that with Fern, that you carry your consequences stay with you, even when you're young, when you're very young, and you should be able to say, okay, that was then, this is, but something about the consequences with that. So, yeah. That's why.
And just one more quick question about the Vietnam War. My perception is, as someone from Austria, that the Vietnam War was this huge national trauma for the United States, more than any other war before that.
Yes. And that the other thing I was thinking with that was that with Fern, Fern's not political. She was not. Her aunt Belle was, but Fern was not political. She wasn't, but it still touched her. Even it's like that war, whether you were out protesting or whatever, even if you weren't, it touched your life and affected your life. And I think I wanted to kind of show that about war. And Mac was not like a gung-ho soldier. Yeah. But when he got there, he realized that I think I put it in the book, he could do things that other people couldn't, and he just wanted to do what he could do. And what a terrible thing. War is just right now, it's been so hard in this past year. And before the Ukraine war, I was like, oh, I couldn't even picture tanks and bombs and city, then I thought, well, back in World War II, they couldn't picture that either until it happened, It's like, when are we ever going to figure this out? It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, it seems so abstract. I don't know which film it was, because there was only a village, just no people there, and it looked like any normal village. Then you turn around the corner, and the soldiers with their weapons, and it seems like with Ukraine. One day it's regular day, and the next day everything is turned upside down.
Yes. One day you're at the mall at Starbucks or whatever, and then I don't know. It's very difficult. I'm hoping.
So unbelievable.
I don't know. Yes, it is unbelievable. And the Vietnam War still haunts us. There was so much, and I don't, the truth about who knew what when, or what was the reason for this, that, or the other, that's still coming out. And it makes you crazy to think that so many lives were lost, and then I don't know. Yeah.
But it's more than just about war, your book. It's about, we said before we came on the show, we said it's about the question, what is a family? What makes a family? And also, what are parents? What makes parents?
And how do you handle truth?
Oh, yes.
Or untruth.
Yeah. And it is. You see her parents, and I didn't really go too much into their story, but you see Matilda, her mother, and her father, and they're just in their own world. And I think, it comes down to sometimes when you get older, you look back at people and you think they were doing the best they could. They were young. They didn't know what they were doing either. The terrible things that happen. And Belle coming home, Belle gave up a lot when she came home. And there's a whole backstory about Belle that if I do write about these characters again, that I want to, she had a whole different life, and she could have had a whole different life. And, but she came home and did what she had to do for those kids. And that says a lot about her.
Yeah. Yeah. I would be interested in a sort of prequel, maybe.
I know. I had knee surgery October 24th. And so my knee replacement. So my whole thought was, I'm going to spend my recovery time writing a little Christmas story about this, and then put it on my website. And that's just going to be so great. I had no idea how much I was going to be dealing with knee stuff. It's like, that was totally stupid. But I did have some days where I've written some things, and I do want to either put it out in a book form or just put it on the website. And because as Belle gets into, this is future, but as Belle gets more into her Alzheimer's, she loses more of a filter, and you find out more about she and Bernice. They have a very special relationship.
That's what I was suspecting somehow.
Yes, good. I'm glad. Okay, I'm glad that came through a bit. But yeah, she and Bernice they had a very special relationship. They were very close. They loved each other. Mm-hmm. And that's something at that time that was so, but as she goes deeper into her dementia, she connects with Bernice in her head, in her mind. And so that's something I want to work on.
Mm-hmm.
To
Yes,
be my dog mark. And
please do so. Maybe for Easter. If not for Christmas,
yeah,
maybe.
I know something. It's like I just want to. But yeah, I'm really glad that came through, because I wanted it to with Belle, and I would like for Belle to have some chapters in the future. But now I'm okay. Now I'm just wasting y'all's time talking about daydreams.
No, maybe, like you said, it's in the future. There's always the possibility. And like you said, I mean, maybe also her backstory, a little bit of a flashback, which we get through the book, sort of flashbacks when we learn about the past, like we said about Leona's responsibilities and the whole situation with Fern and Mac, and also other people's past and perspective. And what I also found interesting in the book is, or like you just said, people are young, people make mistakes. Could it also be that, for example, Matilda and her husband, that they were enough for each other, and they would have been enough for each other, but they had children. And so, like you said, they were young, didn't know how to take responsibility. But some relationships are like that, aren't they? Where people are enough for each other. And although
Yes.
there are children,
Yes.
they are always on the outside
They
somehow.
don't belong.
Yeah.
They're not in the inner circle.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Right. Right. It's in it. It's I don't have children, and it's amazing to me that people just have children. It's like, because that's a lot, and people have children when they're really young,
Yep.
which is the way we're supposed to keep the world going. But still, it's just like mentally, you just think it's a crapshoot, or that's not a good word. But it's like, but it's like it's just by chance that families work, I think, and mature, and I get we all are just doing the best we can. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
And I think it's better to get the children when you're younger, because then you don't overthink it. You just try to manage it somehow.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
What about Roy, your character Roy, the preacher? I mean, he is not your usual fire and brimstone preacher. You might, or I might.
He's more human.
Yes, he's more human. He's a nice guy. I mean, you like him, even if you're not a religious person, which I'm not. But he's likable.
Right. And in Roy, you can see that he has struggled.
Yep.
I think when his wife got cancer, he really believed. He wanted to believe so much that it would work out. And when it didn't, it crushed him, and he was so disappointed. And I love Roy so much. And I think that his open mind, and my question to some minister friends was, would he survive in the church? And fortunately, there are some very progressive churches now that aren't as rigid and inhuman inhumane or whatever. So I had a very good minister in Baton Rouge, Patti Snyder, who kind of showed me that churches could be for the people, for people. It's a mystery. We're all just dealing with the mystery, but you feel a connection with each other, and it's all about the love. And so that's kind of where Roy came from. But I think, I think Roy's going to have some troubles with Hannah in the future. Talking about the parenting, I don't think Hannah's going to exactly be an easy teenager or whatever. And I had one person say, I just don't see what Roy sees in Fern. I don't see. But I think that he liked Fern because she was very open with him and honest, and told him what she thought.
Yep.
She wasn't, she wasn't trying to impress him with her Christian values or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
good point. Yeah, because she tells him how she sees it. She's not holding back.
No, it's like take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And I think he respected that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he did get jealous. He was very jealous.
Yes.
And that was, I think that's kind of human.
Absolutely. Yes,
kind of a
yes.
human thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the first column he wrote in her paper, which also brought him to a point where you think it's relatable. His character's relatable. Although he's a preacher, like you said, he has his doubts, and especially after what happened to his wife, it's only understandable.
Right. I think we've all gone through that. You grow up or you're taught one thing and then you have to question,
Yeah.
and then you figure things out on your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely. And what about, I also liked one other character. She was hilarious. Carol Ann.
okay, do y'all have Carol Ann's in Vienna? I mean, are there Carol Ann type characters
I think so. There are Carol Anns in Vienna as well.
everywhere?
Everywhere.
Everywhere, yep.
Oh, yeah, she's something. She really is. And I love their friendship. I
Yeah.
think that because I have friends that I've known for years and years and we're different, but when you've known someone since childhood, you've just got that special bond. And yeah, Carol Ann makes it happen. Someone at a book club I went to, they were like, Carol Ann made everything happen.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I hadn't even thought about that. She was just in there.
Yeah. And she's
Working.
also, and she's also a sort of, oh, I don't give a flying hoo-ha.
Right. Right. I'll flirt with this young guy at the newspaper. It's like, I
Yes.
don't care. Yeah.
So what? I mean, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that are the most interesting characters usually because they tell it how they see it and they tell the truth.
You're right. And she's not
kind of
afraid of
funny.
Leona. She's not going to let Leona intimidate her
Yeah.
either. And so I liked that.
Yeah, Leona tends to walk over people, but like you said, Carol Ann doesn't care. Dean says, oh, come on,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yes.
Fern, I think she's a little bit afraid of her sister.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I mean, of course, she's a no-nonsense woman. And at the right moment, even Fern needs a no-nonsense woman like her sister.
Yes. I think with that scene that comes to me when you say that is when Leona's trying really hard to get Mac's service put together.
Yeah.
And Fern's upset because Dean's run away and, she just can't deal. And Leona's like, no, Mac deserves this service, and yes, we all need a Leona for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And also how she dealt with Mac's sister.
Yes.
When they spoke about the service. Yeah. That's what they needed to hear.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I need to channel my inner Leona more.
But people like her also need someone they can lean on from time to time.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I mean, she was shouldering a lot of responsibility all through her life, even as an adult.
Yes, yeah. And now she's got a road now ahead of her to try to help Caroline grow up,
Mm-hmm.
And so she's still got a lot going on. And I don't know do you think it would be weird if she and Doyle got together?
No.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I mean, he needs a responsible adult in his life.
Does.
And Leona needs someone who helps her to get a bit loosened up.
From time to time.
Yes.
Yep.
And I don't think Doyle's done with his journey as far as his alcoholism, because that was another thing somebody said, that doesn't just, that doesn't just go away,
No.
So I think he's got a lot more to deal with.
Definitely. Yes. I would say so. He has a long road ahead of him still.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. And I also wanted, because we were wondering about it, the emus. So was that a thing in 1998 in the South to breed emus?
It was kind of a flash of a thing, but it was a thing. It was a crazy thing because all of a sudden people were like, oh yeah, emu are going to be the next big thing. And so people bought emu and started emu farming. And of course it is not the next big thing. That didn't go anywhere. So there's still a few little emu farms around North Carolina, but not anything like people thought. So yeah, that was kind of a boondoggle thing. But poor Dean, he just wants to be his own guy, his own man so badly. He wants to do something so much.
Mm.
And he was, for that to be the thing was just kind of like, oh. But I tell people no emu are harmed in this book. It's
Yes, that's great, to be honest.
absolutely no emu are harmed.
No emu, no dog, and no cats were harmed.
Oh, no animals. No,
Nope.
there will never be an animal harmed in any book or any story I write. And you know what? If I'm reading something and I see that getting ready to happen, I stop. I'm terrible. I just can't handle it. It's like I can't handle bad things happening to animals.
Believe
People,
me, yeah,
you know,
believe me, all authors know that you can kill everyone, but never a dog, for example.
yeah, not the animal. No, no,
Yep.
no, no.
Nope, it's simply not done. Absolutely not, to be honest. May I ask you, because it's interesting, you said Dean was the first character who came to you in this story and he introduced you to the others. And it took a lot of working out the chapters and the perspectives. Are you a planner or are you a pantser or something in the middle, maybe?
I think in between. My good friend Darnell Arnault, who helped me as a mentor and friend, she's like, when the scene comes to you, write the scene. Don't worry about where it is in the book or whatever. If a character starts talking and has something to say and something's going on, get that down and you can figure it out later. And you can do, and that helps, I think, because they do come to you, from writing how scenes come to you, and you've got to get them down when they come, and you've got to get the words down as they're coming to you, because you think, oh, I'll do that later, and then they're gone. Oh my stars, it's terrible, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And so a lot of scenes, but then a lot of, that thing about the arc, like how does this happen? How does this fit in? So the balance between the brains, the left brain, right brain, left brain, right brain, and trying to make it into a manageable thing. And I worked on this book. People say, how long did it take you to write this book? And I say 66 years, my whole life. But seriously, I worked on this book over 10 years. I've worked on it forever and different points of view. And I know I read about your book and and the revision. Revision is a wonderful thing. And I kind of I like revision. I like editing and revision and going back. And I don't there's no sense in rushing it.
Yep.
Like writing it in different points of view. And then I have so much that didn't make the book and that hurt very badly, because you always feel like that's the best part, But I think I admire people. I admire people who get a book done any way they can get it done. It's like whatever works for you.
Yep.
But I also want to add here that, like I said, I'm 66 years old, and I really want the message out there to be, don't give up. Do not give up. And there's so many ways now to get your book published. Mine's with a small independent press. You don't have to do the traditional anymore. You don't have to, for years I sent out letters to agents and all that kind of thing, and rejection. But I do want people to just hear the message, do not give up, keep writing your story, and that there are people out there who need your story and will appreciate your story.
I did.
Thank you.
We did, to be honest.
This is the greatest thing. I can't tell you how much this means to me.
I just saying the truth. I mean,
Yeah.
I liked it. It was great reading it. And I said to you, Tigaptita, I'm glad that we got a mail from Hannah. And otherwise, I would have found your book and I haven't read it. And I would have not experienced this story.
Thank you so much. This is a huge gift.
Just the truth.
Thank you.
I also wanted to ask you about the role of the media in your book, because we said it's set in 1998. Fern works for the local newspaper. And I mean, then and today, I mean, things might have been easier to brush under the carpet, maybe, not get
Right.
them out that easily as it would be today.
Yes. Nothing gets brushed under the carpet today. Things get made up
Yeah.
and brought out
The other
carpet.
way. It works the other way around today.
I would have never, I worked in television and I would have never, ever imagined that things could be like they are now. As far as like misinformation and just getting out there and no one being able to prove or whatever it needs to be that that's not the way things are. I didn't realize that people were so willing to believe whatever they wanted to believe and run with it. And it's a mess. It's just, I don't know. My husband teaches journalism at the university here, and that's a interesting thing to be trying to teach now.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
For young people to say, yeah, they hadn't always been like this.
I guess it has become more difficult to teach it now.
I think so. I think so. There's just so many new ways, and which are good, like we were talking about the publishing. These new things are good but at the same time, with freedom comes responsibility, and the responsibility part seems to be kind of difficult to get a handle on.
But I think maybe nowadays, maybe a story wouldn't become that big or might get lost in all the other news.
That's true. I know it is. That's very true. But again, back with the Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, that was like, you couldn't believe you were hearing the things you were hearing over the television. And I'm not saying that should have been swept under the rug. I mean, that was something needed to happen. That was bad. But it has just gotten so crazy. And
I think
and also a little bit out of proportion, maybe.
So what's it like there?
You mean currently in Austria?
Yeah.
a mess.
A mess.
Is your media more responsible? Oh no!
I mean,
think so.
they you sometimes get the feeling as if they have an agreement what not to write and what to write, and sometimes you are even surprised what they do write about,
Right.
if they are brave enough to write it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's.
But it's not so like in the United States. So one channel that's so right or left wing.
No,
I think that's
no.
not.
You don't have Fox News. You don't have a Fox News, and
Nothing similar.
it's almost like it's just the money. What if they can make money saying something? If they can, they'll do it. It's just nuts. I don't know.
I mean, it's not so completely divided here in Austria. You could get the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, of course, that at the moment the United States are completely divided, and you can't seem to find a common ground.
No. And we've got to. I mean, we can't. That's exactly the way it is. It's almost like who's gonna make the first step for the common ground. It's like I don't want to, but we've got to. Something's got to. I don't know what's going to happen, but it is like that. And okay, so we're coming up on the holidays, and I'm very fortunate that my family, again, we're of like mind. But I have friends whose families are divided. It's sad and it's difficult, and I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. And I guess it's, I don't know. This is not how I thought I'd spend my golden years in this terrible thing. But we've got to figure out how to talk to each other little by little.
Yep.
But as soon as, it's almost like people just throw blowtorches in there, and then it just lights up again. So
yeah, and everyone seems to be instantly offended, even if you look at them the wrong way. And
yes, yeah, absolutely.
It's not how it should be, actually.
No, it's the wrong way because it divides people instead of bringing them together.
Yep.
Yes, yeah, and it's I have no idea what's going to happen. We have another election today, I think, in Georgia in our state. And so and I'm kind of a news junkie too. So watching that.
And I also wanted to ask you about life in North Carolina compared to South Carolina, because I do remember there was this comedian, your American comedian. What's her name? She only recently passed away, and she was a former beauty pageant.
Oh,
What was her name? She was a very tall woman, short hair, and she had this comedy going on, and she talked about her husband. She called him left brain or something like that. Do you know who I talk about?
think of who that is. I'm just having a moment. I can't think of who that might
And
be.
there was also always something about South Carolina and North Carolina in her show. So
Oh,
that's why I wanted to ask you about the difference
okay.
between North Carolina and South Carolina.
South Carolina. What there's that there's this one saying that North Carolina is a vale of humility between two mountains of deceit.
Yeah,
That's what they call it in South Carolina.
I think there's also something you wrote in your book.
Yeah, I put that in there. But I was born in North Carolina, then grew up in Virginia, and then I've lived in South Carolina, and we're all pretty much, it's all the same. But
Okay.
it is, but there's, that history is just, it's not history, it's still there. And that's something that we have to live with and deal with and work on and work through still.
Mm.
And so I think that with the southern states, the South Carolina, Virginia, North Carolina, all, but so there's that. We're all one big thing. But I the coast is beautiful. The mountains are beautiful. That's one thing we all have good with the Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. You have the gorgeous coast, and then you have the mountains. So we feel very fortunate with that. And there's competition with the food.
Mm.
South Carolina would say they have excellent food, and I'd have to kind of agree with that. You can't beat Charleston for restaurants and all, but you guys need to come over here.
We might someday. It's
I
not.
wish you would. If you do, please let me know. Oh my God, I would love to show you around.
I have to tell you, we've got quite a few invitations.
I bet North Carolina, the writers around here. Oh my word! In Hillsborough, we have Lee Smith, Jill McCorkle, Clyde Edgerton lives in the Southern novelist people are. There's just so many great people, and there's a Jason Mott. He lives in Wilmington, and he just wrote a book called, I don't have it right beside, called Hell of a Book.
Mm-hmm.
It's an amazing book. I totally recommend that book.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. I don't know what. I'm looking around at my books here. But yeah, come to North Carolina. We can just set up and do podcast all day long.
Every day, probably. Yeah.
And there's a friend of mine's coming up. Marjorie Hudson has a book coming up called Indigo Fields.
Okay.
And I hope that Hannah, I'll send y'all one, because that's going to be an amazing book.
Mm-hmm. When will it be out?
In March. And Marjorie goes into the difficulties of the South in this book in a good way. So I highly recommend that.
So maybe you can tell her she might want to drop us a line, and maybe she wants to come on.
She would love to, and she'd be a great interview.
Good.
She's an amazing person.
Yeah. Well, wonderful.
I could keep y'all in people,
Everyone can keep us in people. We have.
Oh, yeah, they can.
We have lots. You have lots of dates in our calendar.
As we were talking about the importance of food, what about the importance of drinks?
Oh, yeah, bourbon's a thing. Bourbon is a thing. Yeah. I'm more of a red wine person, but yeah, the drinks. The drinks are bourbon-ish.
Okay. So for the
Yeah,
red wine, you would have to come to our neck of the woods.
I will be very happy to. We haven't traveled since COVID.
Hmm.
My husband and I are going nuts. It's like it's terrible. I cannot wait to get on an airplane and fly, 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 fly. You know, we're
Yeah,
just
it was lovely to do it again this year.
Yes, we did it again only this year because, like you said, COVID got in the way. So
yeah. It's just been way too long. I'm just hungry for over the pond. I
yeah,
need to get over the pond.
Vienna is going nowhere.
Oh, my stars. Yeah, we're dying to get back out there.
Yeah, can imagine. And you have to take your time for Europe, you know.
Yeah.
That's a lot to see, a lot to experience. And also, Patty, may I ask you now, after writing this book, what would be your advice for any other author out there?
To keep writing, to find a community of readers that you trust. I've taken every workshop. I went back to school and got an MFA in Memphis, and I had great instruction there. You know, it's a balance between, and you know this, you're between being alone and doing it, and then talking to the chattering teacup and saying, okay, you know, and sharing your work, and then and taking what you get from that, and then going back, being alone. I've taken work, you know, just take every opportunity to get out there and listen to other writers and read, but to not give up, to believe in your story, and to just keep doing it, and to be open to other ways of publishing. And you know something, Edith, this is where I am now with this. I'm so glad I published South of Heaven. I really appreciate Scott Douglas at Main Street Rag for publishing South of Heaven. That was a tremendous gift to me. That said, it's about the writing. You know, it's the joy of it is getting the story down and creating it. That's the joy of it. And you get caught up in the promotion of it and the, oh, how do I sell? I know my friends are so sick of seeing my book cover on Facebook. They could just die. You know, it's like, give it a rest, girl. Give it a rest. We've read it. You know, we're done with it. You know, you get tired of yourself. You get tired of yourself talking about yourself and promoting your, you know, it's like, because you want to get back to the characters. And I'll say one more thing too about this. I wrote South of Heaven, Main Street Rag published it. And then I found myself, people were like, oh, that's, and I found myself saying, well, you know, it's not War and Peace. Okay. You know, it's not like going to set the literature world on fire or anything. And so I'd kind of like, it's just a Southern. And I promise you that when I was saying that one time, Dean came to my head. Dean walked right into my head and looked at me and said, we told you everything. We gave you our whole story. And now you're out there dissing it. You're out there telling people it's not worth their time. And I mean, it was like, okay, I'm sorry. You're right. You gave me your time. You told me your story, and I need to respect that. So that's another thing. Respect your characters, respect what they're telling you, honor them with your work. And just don't give up, people. Don't give up.
Yeah. And would you also agree that there is only so much you would change for an editor?
Oh, I don't know. I'm pretty pliable. I mean, I say that, but there were some things. Catherine Mila, one of my good friends, read it, and she had amazing edit advice for me. I mean, it would have been a greater book if I could, but I wasn't. I didn't have the talent, the capability. No, I'm serious. I couldn't do everything. And but she saved me on some things, some big things that I had blind spots on. So I say that you have to be so be open to what people are telling you. And especially if you hear it a couple of times, don't just, be open to it. But there are things like, there were some things that I didn't want to change. When you fall in love, when you're in love with Dean and you're in love with Roy, your characters, you're like, no, I'm sorry. That's how they are. That's what they do.
Yeah, and that's how they should be. I mean, like I said, they are very relatable, the characters. And there isn't, well, maybe this whitey guy, but otherwise, there's not one, would you say, you absolutely hate? No. There are a few you would like to shake. Oh, come on. But
I love that, Edith. Can I use that as a blurb?
Feel free.
That's so great. I love that.
I mean, this guy, he's I told you so, Teacup. I said, he's a little guy. I mean, he needs to get off on being the jerk
he needs
to someone else.
His ego.
Yes, for his ego.
These people are around.
Yes, and like you said, some are there to shake them and get out of their headspace, maybe, or how they learn things all their lives.
Yes.
And I got the impression also that quite a few people along the way changed their perspective in the book.
That's been a true joy for me is I've visited really small town book clubs in North Carolina where you would not think there would be much progressive thought. And I have been just overwhelmed by how compassionate people are and I feel like it's because they've gotten to know these characters and I don't even call them, I think calling them characters is, they're people, my people. They've gotten to know my people and it's opened minds. Because when you see someone, when you get to know somebody in a circumstance, that's different than, an idea. Mm-hmm. And it's been just great hearing people talk about my people like their neighbors and people they know. That's a great gift. So
exactly.
Yeah, I hope that the storyline can change, can help. And it kind of makes me want to keep on with these people. Is that wrong? Do I need to get a life? I need to get
No, that's not wrong. I mean, that's something I think a lot of writers experience, because sometimes writers say, my character was looking over my shoulder and told me, maybe not.
Did you experience that?
I didn't, to be honest.
Yeah.
But some obviously do.
Yeah. Yes.
Under a few steps, I don't know which one is the most daring. First, writing the book yourself, then giving it to someone else to read it, and maybe putting it in front of an editor or publisher, then releasing it out to the world.
The editor,
it's the last
maybe.
step, but it's, I guess, every step is a bit
frightening. I think the editor is frightening and the large audience, the public is frightening. You are not frightening, my dear, because you always say, it's okay.
You need someone to say it's okay, because you need to hear it's okay. It's okay. You do. Exactly. There's not one easy thing about it. No. I mean, there's not. I mean, I used to think, okay, well, if I just get it written, okay, well, somebody would publish it. Well, then it's like, well, then now what are you going to do with it? And there's just no easy thing. And that's why it was kind of nice during my little knee surgery recovery to get back to just me and the laptop and Dean and Fern and Doyle, just sitting around the kitchen table talking. It was like, oh, thank God we're back. Here we are. Yep. We don't have to worry about whether somebody will buy it or not. It's just nuts.
Exactly.
But that's the thing.
Yes, but you have to get it out somehow and you can't go on editing.
Yeah.
Because at some point you have to say, let's go.
I forgot to mention this, but the pandemic helped me a lot. I mean, being shut down it might not have happened without the pandemic. Because I don't have a busy life, but everybody's got people, let's do this, let's do that. And it's like, to be able to say no was kind of a gift. And it was just me and the computer. And then during that time is when Main Street Rag was looking for novels. And so I sent them chapters and they said, yeah. And then it was like, oh my stars, somebody's might actually read this. Whoa, I've got to change some names and make things happen, you know. So that really was lit a fire.
Yeah, it's not
And
all bad. The pandemic
no,
was not all bad.
no, I know. I know. And I swore that I wasn't going to just, and then things get crazy.
Yeah. And Patti, what are your plans, your future? I mean, you mentioned maybe a prequel, sequel, but what other plans are there?
I have some short stories that I've had. I have short stories that I want to get out there and get right. So I want to work on those, but I do think that whether I publish something with another thing is South of Heaven, or just make it available on the website, I think I will do something with that just because it's fun. I can't. And I do love these people. They won't be quiet. So, that's what.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, good. That's
More
perfect.
to read.
More to read, yes. And write the prequel.
okay. And a prequel. Okay.
I want to learn more
Write it
about
for
Belle.
you and just send it to you. I'll just write 2 Edith, 4 Edith.
Yeah, because I want to learn a bit more about Belle. She's a fascinating character.
She is a fascinating character. And she's there's a lot to her. There's a lot. And she came up at a time that was a very difficult time with a mother who was and family in that small town. And there's a lot of interest. But I think that's what made Belle who she is.
Mm.
There was some talk about in one book club about Fern's decision, to have Dean, to have the baby. And it's like, wouldn't it be wonderful if every girl had a Belle who said, we'll deal with this. We'll make this happen. It's going to be okay. Every girl doesn't have that. So Belle was, okay, more Belle, Edith.
Just saying. And Patti, is there anything else you would like our listeners to know?
No. Y'all been great. I've just enjoyed this. I didn't realize how much I needed to talk about everything. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to me ramble.
You are most welcome. It was an enjoyable chat, I'd say.
I've enjoyed it very much. It's so great to meet you guys. Thank you.
You're most welcome. And it was our pleasure, Teacup, wasn't it?
Yep, it was.
Yep. You did enjoy this episode as much as we did? Then hit subscribe and don't miss the next episode. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. If you like to support us and buy us a coffee, you can do so via Buy Me a Coffee and other platforms. You can find all the necessary links in the description. Until next time.